Welcome to the Cork Creative Podcast. With this podcast, we hope to promote local creative businesses and people. I am your host, Geraldine Hennessy, and today I am joined by East Cork artist Nicola Geary. Nicola loves working with textures and colours. Her work ranges from clay faces to brightly coloured canvas. Her work is constantly evolving and changing. She loves finding new techniques to use in her artwork. Today we speak about her journey from artist to chef and back again, the surge in creativity that she has experienced, the importance of her mother, family, creative collaborations and supports, learning to embrace the online realm, and the value of being true to yourself. You're very welcome to Cork Creative, Nicola.
Thanks, Geraldine. Thanks for having me on.
How did you get into art and what were your inspirations?
I've always been into art ever since I was a kid. I loved art. When I was in school in Carrigtwohill, my teacher, Miss Power, she was the best. She always encouraged me. So it was just a given. I was going to go on and do art after I left school. And that's what I did. I went on to Sligo and did fine art. So when I left college in Sligo, my plan was to become an art teacher. And I came back down to Cork and I was working in Carrigtwohill Resource Centre teaching just as a after school kind of a club. And I decided, I wasn't cut out for teaching because I had no patience. And the cursing and the giving out to the kids, I said, no, forget it. So I started working with Jacopazzi Pottery in Youghal. And I still did the art school classes, but I decided teaching wasn't for me. So I started working down in Youghal. Friends of mine were working as potters down there. So I was working with him for a year, helping him design and come up with his new range of pottery. And I think I won't say he was using us, but it was all our creativity and we weren't getting anything really back from it. Anyway, I decided one day on my lunch break, I went out, no mobile phones, rang my mum and said, look here, I think I want to start up my own business.
Okay.
And if she had said no, I would have said, okay, no, I won't do it. And she said, yeah, that's a great idea. So I thought, okay, right, here we go. I left him and I went to my mum's, her small little box room, set up a studio there. And I was kind of working away, started off, and I approached ECAD they're CCAD now, in Middleton. Riley Cully was her name, and got funding from them. They were brilliant mentors. They were absolutely brilliant. And I opened up a studio and a workshop in Middleton. Now, this is a long time ago. This is back 30 years ago. That's where I started. I started in a small little place down in Cuddigan's Yard, working away in there. At the time, I was doing mostly hand-painted lampshades because that's what I had been doing for Jacopazzi. And that was, I suppose, my main business. It was my bread and butter. So the art kind of really didn't come into it, like the fine art, the paintings. So I used to do an awful lot of batik as well. So that was my main thing, was hand-painted lampshades and batik. And I set up a company and I was supplying shops all over Ireland and it was great. But I used to do a lot of craft fairs and there was a lot of people in East Cork, small creators. So I was, here, I've got this massive space. Why don't you put some stuff in here? We set up, I suppose, a small little shop. And I was working away in the corner and that was going great. It was brilliant. I had loads of people in there that had like small little producers. And somebody had said to me, why don't you open up a shop on the main street in Middleton? And I was like, no way, you must be joking. So I said it to my mom. My mom is my biggest supporter.
Yeah.
Always has been. So I said to her, what do you think? There was a shop had come up. Everybody in Middleton will know it as Hankard's. It was Hankard's old bicycle shop. A lovely couple, an elderly couple. And of course, they were wary of who they were going to let into the shop. But of course, they met the mother and the daughter and they thought, yeah, these are lovely. So we opened up a shop there. It was called Doolra Designs. And the plan was because it was such a big space, I was going to move my workshop over there as well and work from there and run the shop. That didn't work. That didn't happen. So I stayed where I was and Mum ran the shop. And like that, we had all local producers, was all mostly Irish based. And we were there for, I think, 10 years. So the art side then started when we went to a show in Dublin and we were picking out some stuff for the shop. And like we saw some art and it was lovely. And my mum was like, oh, do you think we should get some of that? And I was like, I can do that. What are you talking about? That's what I went to college for. So she was like, okay, go on. So I started doing a few pieces, but I was never I would think I was too busy doing all the other stuff, like the hand painted lampshades, because it was a big business at the time. So I wasn't very creative, I suppose. Yeah, we were at that for 10 years. Then the recession hit, kids came along, and I kind of winded it down, and I wasn't doing much then. I was teaching kind of part-time out in Whitegate and at Clyne, and I had after school, kids clubs, and I left it, and I was chefing then for 5 years. That was pure by accident. I was working with my brother. Had come back, but he just literally threw me into the kitchen.
Yeah.
He was like, he opened up a bar and restaurant. It was lovely. It was beautiful. And I was always good at cooking.
Yeah.
So, he said to me, our chef had left, and he was like, you're going to have to cook. And I'm like, I can't cook. What are you talking about? He said, you're going to have to run the kitchen. I was like, I'm not running a kitchen. What will I do? What if like 4 tables come in at once? Anyway, I did. And it was brilliant. I loved it. Great experience. And I went on for 5 years. I was chefing for 5 years, and I loved it. And a lot of people say food is very similar to art because you've got to be creative in it. So I did that. And then 2 years ago, I was working as a head chef in a nursing home out in East Cork, and it was like mid-pandemic, and I decided to leave because the person I was working for wasn't the nicest person in the world. So we'll say no more about him. And I just left, and I said, you know what, mid-pandemic, the kids had been kind of, at home all the time, and I wasn't there all the time. So now they're bigger, so it was okay. And I was bored. I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I have to do something with my hands. I have to always be doing something with my hands. So dug out the old art materials and started up again. And this time when I started back doing my art, I had the time. The kids are bigger. They're all teens now. And I had the time. And I found I was way more creative, just way more creative. Stuff was just coming out. I had the time, you see. And like the clay pieces that I do, that came about because my daughter decided she wanted a slab of clay because she was making, I don't know, little things for Christmas for her friends and stuff. So I started kind of, playing about with it, So that's how they were born, I suppose, the little clay faces. Of course, she wasn't a bit impressed. Like, she was like, oh, you're stealing my thunder, Mom. What are you doing? I was like, I'm not, love. It's completely different. She was like, so she gave that up, and I just continued on. So that's kind of how I got back into the art, I suppose.
And you've a very distinctive and kind of eye-catching style. How would you describe your art to those who are listening who may not be familiar with your work?
So I have 3, I suppose, distinctive styles. I do what I call the little clay faces. So that's air dried clay, and I paint onto it then. So I cut out the pieces. I don't ever draw anything out. Like a lot of people will do sketches beforehand. I don't. I'll start cutting with the knife, and it just comes to me as I'm doing it, and the face just takes, it happens. So I dry that, and then I paint it. Now, if I was to use like a biscuit clay and have it fired, I don't have a kiln or anything, so I had no choice. I had to use the air drying clay. Then I'd have to use a glaze, and I wouldn't get the same colours. So I use acrylic paint, and then I seal them. So I'm able to play around with the colours much better. Then my other pieces, I have what I called is the coastal series. So they'd be more kind of, I suppose, landscape-ish kind of, it's from when I went to Ballinskelligs 2 years ago with my brother and my sister. And like, we have such an amazing coast. So I started doing pieces. I started picking up driftwood and little pieces off the beach. So that's where that was born from. So, and then my other pieces, I suppose they're kind of like portraits of people kind of out of my head. And then I do other portraits of people. I've done a couple of commissions, and I've done one there recently for the Two Hats Pizza in Glanmire. Turned out really well. They were very happy with it. I always said I absolutely hate drawing faces. I don't draw faces, and I don't draw pets. So I was never my thing. I'm not really good at it. But these don't look like the people. They're kind of, suppose, an impression of them. You know what I mean? So
it's kind of an abstract
quite colourful
style
and stuff. And colour is my thing. Colour's always my thing. And I think that's what draws people to my work, is the colour. Now, if you look back at my earlier work when I was in college, God, everything was really dark and dreary, and I don't know, maybe it was the time or what, but yeah, colour now to me is just it's everything, so I use acrylic all the time. I just don't have the patience for oils. I have no patience. I just can't wait for stuff. Sometimes I'll get an idea in my head, and I have to get it out. I can't wait to get up that following morning to get it down onto paper or whatever, which is a great thing because not everybody has that option. I love working at home and, of course, kids don't like it because the whole kitchen is taken up until I eventually get a proper studio, which is down the road, hopefully.
You work in mixed media and clay. Have you a preference in the type of material you work in? You said you liked acrylic there. Is that your preference or?
I suppose acrylic would be my preference. I love working with clay. I've always worked with clay. We had a brilliant ceramic teacher in Sligo, Con Lynch. He was a Cork man. He was brilliant. And I've always loved ceramics. So I think the clay for me was a natural progression. And I would like to kind of build on it eventually, doing kind of more freestanding stuff, I suppose, kind of sculpture things. But that's down the road, that involves killing a kiln and then having to go back through all over the stuff of glazing and other. Now, Susan Hurley, she's in Middleton. She's brilliant. She's very encouraging. And, I know if I ever get stuck, she'll give me a hand. So.
And speaking about Susan, you've recently started selling cushions of your artwork through her shop there in Middleton. Is it important to keep on innovating in terms of getting your art out there in the public domain? Oh,
it is. I mean, when I think of it, when I first started, like 30 years ago, it was you sold in a shop, that was it. Whereas now everything is, it's online and it's, everybody has a whole range of stuff. So I'm part of a group called Bite the Biscuit, and they're brilliant. It's run by a girl in Dublin called Tara Boo. It's for all creators all over Ireland. It doesn't matter what you do. So I was looking at other, artists who have kind of, brought in a range of their stuff. So like Karen Hickey being one, I love her stuff. So like that, again, I was like, Mom, what do you think? What do you think I should go down the cushions route? So she says, yeah, they'd be brilliant. So we got on to Pixely in Donegal. I had researched, I wanted to keep it Irish, but I wanted it to be cost effective. I wanted people to be able to afford a cushion. I mean, you're not going to go into a cushion and pay 100 quid for a cushion, so I wanted to keep it low. And yeah, they were brilliant. They were absolutely brilliant. And, they're great for uploading the files and they're great for giving advice. Yeah, so I've done the cushions and they have a whole load of range of stuff that I'm hoping down the road that I will, bring on board. But we'll start off small now at the moment. So I've got cushions coming and I have little tote bags. And I would like to get into the lampshades. I have a sample of a lampshade coming down because around Middleton, I am known for my lampshades. And people still come up to me and say, oh, I've got one of your lampshades in my sitting room. And I'm like, oh, God, really? So, yeah, you have to kind of keep on top of it. Like, I mean, Susan is absolutely brilliant. Like when she opened up her shop last year, and I had run a shop for years, so I kind of knew where she was coming from. And like, she's so encouraging and she'll always, if I need advice on something, like, what do you think? Will this sell or will that not sell? She goes, she's really good. So, and it's great. Like nobody else has my cushion at the moment, only Susan, because I always kind of try out my stuff in her place. And Susan's great because she gets so excited when you sell something.
Yeah.
Like if I sell a big painting or a thing, she's on the phone straight away to me going, oh, guess what? I've just sold one of your big pieces, and she's brilliant. Like, she gets such a thrill out of it, of selling other people's stuff, as well as her own stuff. So it's great. Like, it's brilliant. Yeah.
It's great to have those kind of relationships forged with, say, those like local craft shops and like those local producers up like that Pixely in Donegal. It's great to have those kind of collaborations, isn't it?
Oh, it's fantastic. And even meeting like Orla out in the gallery in Castlemartyr, like she has some of my stuff, and we did a fair last year at Christmas, an art fair, and it's even meeting some of the other artists out there, like Linda Taylor, she was brilliant, and Helen Condon, and like I was still starting off, and I was like doing my frames and stuff, and she was saying, right, you need to kind of up your game on the frame side. I said, okay, fair enough. So she gave me the name of a guy in Meath, Folks Who Live on the Hill, and they're fantastic. Tig is fantastic. So if I have a certain size or a certain, like for my clay faces, I just pick out a size and tell him what I want, and he sends them down. He's great. Now, they're a little bit more expensive, but, you have to kind of, if you want to get the right price for your stuff. So, and they look much better. Like, so there's loads of people like around East Cork, like Middleton Arts Festival. They're brilliant. They're so encouraging. Like, hopefully we'll do an exhibition during the year, and they do a big art fair down at the farmers market. Last year was their first one. This year is their second one. It was fantastic last year. So all these little people around, it's great.
And has your approach to art evolved over time? You were saying at the beginning it was kind of very dark, and now you use a lot of bright colours now. Has it evolved much over the time, do you think?
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, yeah. It's like when I look back at some of the stuff I did 20 years ago, it's awful. It's just awful. But oh yeah, it definitely has. Like using the different techniques. Like a lot of my stuff is very, very textured because I like people to be able to, like touch it and feel it, and the colors. And then yeah, doing the portraits and stuff. Yeah, it's definitely evolved a lot more than what I was used to doing. So.
And do you feel like your life experiences has helped in that evolution?
It has, yeah. I'm the type of person that when I'm out, I'm always looking at stuff that will, especially with colour, like whether it's, on the beach or somewhere, like I every time I go for a walk on the beach, my head is always down because I'm looking for stuff. I'm looking for driftwood or sea glass or whatever, So I like to use stuff that's around me, and like, I suppose colour, it's just, I think it brings a bit of happiness into somebody's sitting room or whatever, a bit of colour. So I think that's my main thing is colour, using colours. My mother calls them, they're a bit out there, like, but maybe they are, but now in saying that, my mother has nearly her whole house full of my stuff. And every time I do a new piece, can I have one of those? So I do prints then as well. That's something I never had done before. And I do prints of my original pieces. Obviously, some pieces I can do, like I can't do prints of the clay and stuff. It's usually the portrait pieces. I'm able to sell them at a lower cost because not everybody can afford an original piece, which is great. And I've sold quite a lot of those, and I get people coming back for new pieces and stuff, which is a great thing. Plus, my mother has every single print I've ever done, like in her house. It's like a gallery.
Your mother sounds like a great support network to you. She really does.
Oh, do you know what? She's the backbone. Like anytime, like she's my best critic.
Yeah.
Like, I have a thing for fish. I love fish. Whether I'm cooking or whether I'm painting it, and she hates fish. She absolutely hates them. Like, I did some pieces for a restaurant down in Bantry, because Bantry Bay. So I did a big, massive piece. It was just all sardines. She's looking at it going, oh my God, with the fish. And I was like, but that's what they like. They love it. And I did a piece for a cushion, and there's fish. She was like, you're not putting fish on a cushion? And I'm like, but people like fish. I love fish. And now I'm doing a whole load of fish clay fellas as opposed to the masks. And like, they're flying, they're selling really well. And a gallery up in Dublin, she has my pieces. So she asked me for fish. My mother's just going, oh my God, with the fish. She hates them, but I love them. So yeah, my mum's great.
Oh, very good, very good. Do you ever have to deal with creative blocks, and how do you overcome them?
Do you know what? I don't really, because I think, like, there's days there where I can't be arsed. I think because I've got 3 different kind of styles going on, and I could spend a week doing, say, clay stuff. Like, so I spent the last couple of days doing a whole load of fish to paint up. And then I've done enough of that. I'll go move on to something else, or so I thankfully, I don't really get creative blocks. If I do, then I'll just, I'll go like up to Crawford Gallery and have a look. Actually, I saw one of my old tutors have a piece up there, and, I suppose draw inspiration from them, or I'll get an idea in my head and I'll go from that. And usually what will happen is I'll get an idea and then it just goes off on a tangent. Loads of other stuff starts coming. I think once you get started at all, it just keeps on going, which is good.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Draw inspirations from lots of different things, and because you've got different, I suppose, sides to your art, if it's not happening in one part, it'll happen in another part easy enough. So
it happens somewhere else.
That's very good. And do you feel like that social media and the demands of having an online presence hampers the creative spirit, or how do you feel about the online aspect?
Oh, I hate it. I hate it. I don't hate it. It's great and it's brilliant. And it's a great boost for the ego because, you put a piece up and you get some, and people are so great. But I think for me, I need to go in and do a bit of training on it because I suppose I'm a dinosaur, like, because my son had to set up, like, I probably sound like so many other people, like, he had to set up my Instagram thing. And then he was like, you need to do some videos. And I'm like, what? How am I going to do a video? So he did that for me, and it was very basic. But I definitely need training in it. Like, I need to have like an online shop. I have no clue how to do it. And it is very important, but it takes up so much time. Like, going through stuff and editing it and this, and I'm not doing it right. And like even my other friend, Nigel Conall Bass, he's a sculptor in West Cork. I was putting up pictures and I obviously wasn't doing it right. And he was like, no, Nicola, you need to click on this thing at the corner, which makes it smaller. I'm like, okay. It's definitely really important and it's really good because it's a great platform for people to see your stuff. But yeah, I definitely need a bit of training in it, which is something that I'd probably have to do. Or if there was one person out there, which there probably is, said, oh, here, look, I'll take all your stuff and I'll do it all for you and whatever, No, they probably cost money, like, which, at the moment isn't viable.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe down the road when I become famous.
Get your son there to he'll have to form a part of the company with you and you'll pay him in return for doing all that stuff.
Oh, he'd love that. Yeah, he'd definitely love that. We did the fair last year with that particular son, Zach is his name. He came with me and he's quite creative as well. Of course, he just sees the money signs. He just sees, oh God, I left him do it. Like he was doing the sum up and the whole lot. And he was like, I was just standing back and chatting away to people. And he decided, God, you know what? There's something in this kind of art thing. So he decided he was going to make some jewellery, like driftwood jewellery. Because I have bags of little pieces of driftwood. It hasn't happened yet. Like, so he has the business card designed, but he doesn't have any of the pieces done. He gets a bit carried away with himself, like.
Well, but watch this space. Yeah. You never know.
Yeah, hopefully down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm lucky because the three of them, my three kids are. My daughter is an absolute fantastic artist. She has done some pieces, tattoo for her friends. She has drawn them, and they're unreal. But I keep saying to her, don't go into art. It's too hard. It's too hard. Yeah. So, but I don't know. She'll have to find her own way.
It's a good hobby to have, though. Anyway, isn't it? It's a good way to relax and stuff. Even if you don't make a career out of it, yeah, they could be doing worse things.
Exactly, they could.
Are there any support groups or peer groups that you find important?
I think the best support group really is that crowd that I said, Bite the Biscuit, Taraboo. They're brilliant. And it's all online. We've got Middleton Arts Fest, we've got Middleton Creative. So there probably could be a bit more, but I find my best support really are other artists, friends that I've met along the way that, I think that they're the best. And I think you'll always find, probably throughout the sector and all craftspeople, there's no animosity, like, you'll always want to help somebody else or, give them advice on something, you know what I mean? So, which is a good thing, do you know what I mean? If I'm somewhere and I think somebody would benefit from, try these crowd that do the frames, or this is where I get my prints done. I have met a couple of people and I've said, look, this is where I get my prints done. You would really benefit from that. So I think, artists ourselves are our best support group.
Definitely. What are the biggest challenges you face?
I think my biggest challenge is getting my stuff out there. I am the worst business person in the entire world. So I really, really am. Like my mother would tell you that. And maybe it's me or I don't know, but I hate selling my stuff. I hate it. I used to do it before. I did it all years ago when I was doing the lampshades and stuff. Whether it's a confidence thing in my work or what, I don't know. And I don't know why, because I always get a good reception to it. But it's going out there and trying to sell it and getting it out. Like I love doing the fairs and stuff, but going to shops and stuff, I find really hard. Years back, you see, my mum did all that when she was younger. She went off and she got me into all the shops that I was in. So it's pricing your stuff. A lot of people say, oh my God, your stuff is way too cheap. I'm still making money on it. So, and I don't want my art to be that people just can't afford it. Yeah, it's finding that middle ground.
So you want it to be kind of accessible to a range of people, not just the people with lots and lots of money.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I've always been kind of like that. I have pieces that start at €15 and that go up to into the thousands. So when we did that art fair last year, which was the best thing ever that ever happened to me, I had these little small clay faces and Eddie Quinn was next to me. He's a fantastic artist. He's a retired art teacher. He's up North Cork. And his grandson had came down to visit him at the show, and he saw one of my pieces and he was like, oh, and he bought it. They bought quite a few pieces of mine, which was really great. And he bought it and he went away. And an hour later, his mum had texted on a picture to Eddie. He had went home and drew a picture of the one that I had done.
Oh.
So he was only like 7 or 8. So I was like, oh my God. He was like, oh, I love your stuff and whatever. And I was like, oh my God, he's brilliant. And he did another couple. And I had said to him, do you mind if I put that up on my feed on Instagram? And he was delighted with himself. So to think that this little guy got, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
So when you get those little moments, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Inspiring a little kid.
Exactly. It's not all about making the big sale sometimes. It's about the little things as well.
No, it's not. It's not. It's, you'll get somebody that comes along and, they're already, like, when I did the one in the marina, there was an art student and she just loved it. And she bought a piece for 25 euros and she was delighted going away with herself that she was able to afford to buy a little piece, which is great. Yeah. I get more buzz out of that than selling a big piece,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Keep it real.
Yeah.
What are your plans for the next year?
So I've been talking about this for the last year. I've been talking with Susan stuff. Middleton needs an art centre, right? So there's, like, I suppose with the pandemic, a lot of people started doing art and creative stuff. So there's quite a good few people around now. Whether they stuck at it, I don't know. But talking to people, they've got like I moved house last year and I don't have a studio here. Like I do with the shade out the back, but it's still there's stuff in it, crap. So what we need is a centre where, like, you have small little studios, not just for artists, for everybody, anybody, musicians, poets, writers, actors, everything. And I have the ideal building in mind, I won't say, but it would be perfect. So that would be the next step, is to get something like that going, to have a proper studio and, some place for people to go, something that, that everybody has the use of it. Say 6 people, then they can't afford to buy a kiln, but we buy one between us.
Yeah.
Now, I have no clue how to go about it. I don't know about the funding, so I know at the moment I'm quite busy, so I need to make time to go and try and do something like this. And of course, obviously I want to, bring out a range of cushions and hopefully a range of lampshades and kind of work on my products really, I suppose. And definitely I need to get my website up and going, which my nephew is going to do for me, hopefully. And I suppose that's really where my main concentration will be, is getting that together, you know what I mean? Because, we don't know what the future is. Are we going to have a downturn where people are going to really want to be, paying a lot of money for art? So I just have to keep on going, I suppose, and work on those areas, as best I can.
At least your plans are big. You've got they're big and small,
Yeah, maybe they're a bit too big.
No, I think it's a good range. You're focusing on yourself, but also like that Middleton Art Centre sounds amazing. Like if that could get up and going, I think inspiration, like if you're surrounded by other people, other artists, it's going to only help you as well to, improve yourself,
Oh yeah, I think Middleton is just crying out for a place. I mean, they have a beautiful one over in Carrigaline, the Onabuie Centre. Like, why hasn't Middleton got something like this? I know they do try and do some stuff down in my place in Middleton. It's a centre where they have, they do lots of exhibitions and music and stuff, and it's fantastic. But it just doesn't lend for art exhibitions. It just it's a nice space, but it's not the perfect space. And like that, people need studios. There's loads of people that just need studios, and they can come in, and you'll find if you've got a whole group of artists working that they'll bounce off each other. And I know the perfect building, and I'm hoping that it'll still be there. I need to go maybe talk to a TD or somebody. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I'm sure there's probably somebody else out there that, has a better idea than me. But at the moment, it's just an idea in my head. But anybody I've talked to said, yeah, definitely we should do something like this. Even Susan herself said, she would take a room down there for doing her own creative stuff. So, hopefully down the road.
What piece of advice would you give to the aspiring artists listening? What mistakes or good choices did you make that you think would be of benefit to others?
I suppose being true to yourself is one of the main things. Like, you can always get caught up in doing commercial stuff or getting caught up in the whole finance side of it, the pricing side of it, so just be careful when you are, value your work and make sure that you do put the right price on it. Always be careful of doing a collaboration with somebody just in case, and always have your stuff copyrighted. It's a simple thing, just get it done. So, because I've had that experience in the past where people have just, taken your design and ran with it, you know what I mean? So I suppose that's the best advice I could give to anybody, and just use the people that are around you, use other artists, network with them. And like, one of my biggest supporters would be also Paul Looney down in Dunmanway. He's great. So, our fan thing comes up, he'll always recommend me. So use the people around you. That's the best thing you can do.
Well, thanks so much for joining us on the Cork Creative Podcast.
Thanks very much, Geraldine. Thanks for having me on.
If you'd like to learn more about Nicola, you can find links to her social media on corkcreative.ie.